welcome again. I'm understanding we had about 170 odd registrations for today's show, so another fantastic turnout. Dr. Andy, how's the registrations looking at this moment?
Registrations people are still coming into the room as always.
Yep.
And this is the summer months. A lot of schools are out, and we do appreciate students even still taking their time to come every week to learn something. And I think this ties in with your topic today, Alan, about being self-directed and taking responsibility for your learning.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share some secrets for success in your online courses today with the students and with educators that are joining us. The show is predominantly aimed at students, helping them to understand different ways in which they can become successful in their online courses. And there may, as I said before, even be a few tips and tricks for educators along the way. Welcome, Professor Hobson. How's things that side of the world?
Well, as I said, it's a great day here in Malaysia. The sun's always shining. Been a busy week for myself. You know, we're seeing some changes here, particularly with the opportunity to open up travel. I'm pleased to say that we're hoping that the borders may open up the end of August. Infection rates have stayed low here. So now we're opening up. Swimming pools, in fact, are reopening. This is giving hotels a chance to reopen. I was talking to General Manager the other day. He had been working in KL on about a 5% occupancy rate. He is now up over 40%. The island of Langkawi again has reopened. It's very much about domestic tourism at this point, but you can begin to see some green shoots appearing. Globally, a bit of a different story. You know, we've got some infection outbreaks in Beijing, in Germany, down in Australia. So it's still a very mixed pattern around the world at the moment. So we're not out of the woods with this situation yet for a while, sadly.
Absolutely. And Dr. Andy, why don't you thank our academic partners?
We always appreciate the support from our academic partners. LPU is one of our biggest supporters, and they have 5 campuses. So welcome to all those students. University of San Tomas is one of the oldest universities in this side of the world. We look at from our friends in Macau, from the Tourism and Hospitality Association, and also from Kaohsiung University, the International Masters of Tourism and Hospitality. So welcome to all of our partners and their students, and we look forward to having your support continue in the future.
Absolutely. As we know, without the academic partner support, there would be no 30-minute talk shows. So thank you once again for your loyal and long-serving partnership with us. So today, everybody, and now for the segment that's proven extremely popular in the past 3 weeks, I think it is now, since we've introduced the 90-second show, hosted by Dr. Andy.
Welcome to 90 Seconds. Today, we're going to talk about virtual backgrounds. When you're in Zoom and have your camera on, you can go to the icon and you can click on Choose Virtual Background. That will give you a new window, and then you can decide what your background will be. So for example, if I want to be in San Francisco, I click on San Francisco. Now, this is an easy way for you to improve your professional appearance. If you want to have a natural background, great, that's easy too. So all these things are possible in Zoom. So just by clicking these different icons, you can put your own photos in here. And I use this one when I'm talking about 30 minutes. Sometimes you've seen this one in the past. And also, you know, I use this one from the Philippines. It's one picture from the Philippines, another picture from Palawan. All of these pictures are possible just by uploading them into Zoom. How do you upload? Up here you see this one little plus sign. You add an image or video. So let's take a look at one of the videos that is already in Zoom. Here it is. In the Aurora, I can look at the Aurora. Now, how does this all work? If you want to increase the quality of your image, you use a green screen. What is a green screen? Well, let me show you. If you have no background, this is a green screen. The image is displayed on the green screen behind you. So you can use a green tablecloth, you can use a blue sheet, you could paint your wall green if you wanted to. Easy ways for you to have a virtual background. And that concludes today's 90 seconds. Thank you.
Fantastic, Dr. Andy. I think that leads very nicely into the background challenge. But just before we do, fantastic to see the different pictures and different backgrounds that you use there. And as you said, green screens are not as complex as what they might look in the start, and certainly not as expensive as what they look. And I know that the three of us, we've shared thoughts and ideas, and an example is that my green screen, I think, cost less than 15 Australian dollars to put in place. So let's move in today's background challenge. Dr. Andy, tell us a little bit more about that one.
Yeah, as we were talking about the green screen, we decided to have a background challenge. Many of the students out there are on video conferencing all the time, and I'm telling you, a lot of the backgrounds are not very good. So starting today and ending next Tuesday on June 30th at 5 o'clock, we are inviting students to send us an improvement of your background. So we want you to send us one PowerPoint slide. The email address is there. And so we want you to send us a PowerPoint slide, and we're going to give away 1,000 pesos, which is, we'll make that equivalent around the world, depending on where a student comes. But the best Zoom background improvement. Now, you can do that with a green screen if you want to get adventurous, or without a green screen. And also maybe the most creative. Let's see who can be creative out there, and also the funniest. And so what you need to do is send one PowerPoint slide to include your name, school, email address, and which category you're applying for, so that we can judge that. And then at the end of each show over the next few weeks, we will show you the winner, and we'll be happy to see how many different creative and ideas that we get. And so the next slide is an example of what your slide should look like. And so one slide, your name, I have my title instead of school, I have my email address up there, and then I'm applying for background improvement. So you can see that my before slide was my office, and then my after slide, I'm using a green screen, and I have my wonderful little globe that came out. I like that one with the little plane on it, and it has our logo on it. So this is what you need to send to us so that we can evaluate them and pick some winners. And if this contest goes well, then we look forward to having a lot of new different kinds of contests and challenges for students in the future. So an opportunity for students to be creative and try something new. And if you can see what Professor Hobson's background looks, he's very creative. Look how creative that background that Professor Hobson has.
It's not a bad background, but sometimes, you like to change your background. You want to be somewhere different. So, I mean, you can always come up with something a little bit different. And sometimes I just want to talk about myself. So I can get my own self background and can put that on there and talk about those sorts of things. So whatever you like.
Very good.
That's it. Moving from boring office backgrounds or, sitting at the table in a room that's dark and rather uninteresting, to moving to areas of international hospitality and tourism, and becoming a guru and a speaker of note can be done just by introducing some very clever ideas of the backgrounds. Thank you, Dr. Andy, and also Professor Hobson. Sorry, Perry.
I know Alan's got an interesting example of how important videos are in his presentation today. So I know everybody will be looking forward to that.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Andy and Perry. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen and friends, colleagues and visitors to the 30-minute talk show, it's time for today's presentation. And the presentation today is Secrets for Success in Your Online Courses. So I'm hoping today that I can share with you a number of different tips and tricks that might help you through your online courses and make you a little more confident and successful in your online learning. And we know that COVID-19 is only one of the reasons that we're talking about online courses at the moment. This has been a shift towards in education for some time now, that educators and institutions are moving their courses into the online space. And so I'm hoping that some of the tips and tricks that I can share with you will help you become a little more successful in your online courses. So in order to understand a little bit more about studying online, I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between face-to-face and online courses, and I think it's important to understand those. And then after that, I'll move a little bit to looking at how you can set your spaces and how you can take charge of your online goals. And then I'm going to explore making the most of your online courses for success. And then at the end of the show, our usual slot for Q&A, and that's going to give all of you an opportunity to participate, ask the questions, and get involved as we have a discussion at the end of the session. So there are a number of differences between face-to-face and online learning, with many of the differences having to take place at your colleges or universities during the design, the development, and the approval or publishing phases of the course. So this is usually well before the course is even made available to students. And so, for example, I work with Higher Education Leadership Institute in Australia, which at the moment only offers online courses. And we have no face-to-face teaching. And an example would be that we spend almost 1 year just in the preliminary stages of designing and preparing courses to teach online. So offering online courses does require a strategic whole of institutional approach. And this normally means much more than just one lecturer preparing their slides and turning their course to an online course. It usually means a whole team of people working with those lecturers and teaching professionals with instructional designers to work in tandem with the discipline lecturer or the lecturer that you're used to visiting face-to-face to ensure a whole wide variety of student learning styles and experiences are catered to. So whilst I don't want you to take this whole slide into account, there are a couple of areas that I think are important for us to talk about today. And one is becoming a self-directed learner. The second I'm going to be talking about is taking charge of your learning. And the third is going to be personalizing your learning in the online space. And I'm going to give you examples of each of those three areas as we speak through. So whilst my session today is aimed primarily at students, I'm also going to be making note of comments for faculty. And so I guess if you're a faculty member joining us today, each time you see the globe pop up, the idea globe pop up, that means it might be a slide or a few ideas on that slide or in my presentation that are of particular note for yourself as well. So I'm going to take you through these three items of online courses and hopefully provide you a little bit more insight into understanding how each of these areas contribute to you becoming more successful in online education. And my presentation incorporates ideas from Helly, the students that we teach at Helly, many other students that I've come into contact with and taught over the many years, and a whole range of varying experiences in online education. And each of these, the key areas that I cover that I consider being the most important for you to become successful as an online student. So let's look at the key differences. In order to be successful, an online learner, it is important to understand that there are key differences between face-to-face and online learning. And firstly, unlike face-to-face or on campus, the most obvious could be that you don't sit in the classroom with a teacher and a whole number of students around you. And therefore, online courses are usually or mainly asynchronous. That is where the students and your online instructors or your professors will each determine how and when they engage with the course and how they participate in their online courses. So rather than it being led by an instructor, it is much more for you to lead your teaching and your learning in that course. Being asynchronous presents a whole range of significant advantages to many students, including parents and students who are working full-time and then need to study. It offers you a whole range of significant flexibilities. It gives you the ability to study at your own pace, at your own place, or wherever you choose for that matter. So it could be at home or at work or in your breaks at work, whenever. But you'll also need to ensure that you have a phone or a tablet or a computer that has a stable internet connection usually. And if not, you'll need to set up a work area where there is some level of connectivity that's reliable. But all of this freedom means that it sometimes is also more difficult for you to focus. Online courses also therefore need for you to become a much more self-directed learner. And self-directed learning requires you to develop a much greater level of study disciplines than what is normally required with face-to-face courses. Students in face-to-face courses usually actively listen and participate in class, usually take notes that are guided by the lecture that's taking place. They study and they complete the coursework all under the guidance of a lecturer that's in front of them. And that generally keeps most students on track. However, in an online course, successful students need to be much more self-disciplined. They need to be more self-directed and more self-motivated, and also generally very good at personal time management. So in fact, in all of the online sessions that I conduct with teaching staff, the most common question that I come across is from those lecturers is, how can I motivate my students who are disengaged? It's hard enough to motivate students in the face-to-face environment. Well, learning and teaching is a partnership between the students and the lecturers. And therefore, if students are not self-disciplined, not self-directed, or not self-motivated, they generally will also become the last ones who also then fail to convince an employer that they're the right person for the job. So these soft skills of being self-disciplined, self-directed, and self-motivated are not only critical to your online studies, but also generally critical to your overall career and life successes. So here's a great example of being self-disciplined. And I'm sure most of you will know the person that I'm about to speak about, J.K. Rowling. She was having problems writing her very last Harry Potter book, the Deathly Hallows. Well, why? What were the problems? Well, there came a day where the window cleaner came along to the house. The kids were at home, the dogs were barking, and she could not work. You can imagine the scenario, trying to write the last novel in a set and having all of these challenges. Well, how did she overcome those challenges in order to finish writing the book? Well, she had to take discipline and had to take control. She came up with a brilliant idea. What if she works in a distraction-free place? So she checked herself into a 5-star hotel called the Balmoral Hotel and worked from the Balmoral Hotel. There's a picture of the desk that she worked from in the hotel. And in fact, the statue that's in the room, she signed that and said that the book was finished in that room on that date and that time. So why did this work so well for her? Well, for me, the answer is quite simple, but I think it's really important for you to understand. She had the discipline to remove the distractions. She understood that if she worked from home, she may never finish the book. Generally, distractions equal procrastination. The more distractions you have, the more procrastination and the less chance you will have at completing the course or being successful in your course. So you too can be successful in your online studies by replicating the J.K. Rowling model. You may not need to move into a hotel or a room, a separate hotel room to study, but by being disciplined, you can move to a distraction-free workspace and remove those distractions. As we said, distraction generally means procrastination, and this hinders your online learning. So let's also look at setting up online spaces and achieving online goals. And there are 3 points that I'm going to focus on in this area. Setting up an online study space, taking charge of your online learning, and planning your study times. They're all critical in order to be successful. So setting your online space requires students firstly to recognize that they need to develop a diverse range of communication skills in the online environment. And this is never more true than what it might be in the face-to-face environment. So that includes reading written online content. It includes watching videos and listening to audio content and interacting with other students and your lecturers through a whole range of communication styles. That's chat rooms and social media platforms that are not normal in the face-to-face environment. In fact, again, these skills are not only important to online courses, but are also critical to your future successes in the hospitality, travel, or tourism industries. Most employers are looking for fantastic communication skills, and the online environment can help you to develop those. In order to be successful with your online courses, you'll also need to set up an appropriate online study space. So it's also okay to know that online allows you to study from anywhere at any time, but very few students have the capacity to learn effectively while traveling on a bus or during their lunch break or at work. So in order to be successful at online learning, you'll need to develop a whole range of competent set of digital literacy skills. Knowing how to dress and present yourself for an online learning environment, for example, is equally as important as it is getting dressed and attending college or university or going to work. And in fact, in this space, practice makes perfect. You also need to know to be comfortable working with your online learning management system. And there's lots of learning management systems out there. And I'm sure that most of you might be familiar with or heard of systems like Blackboard and so on. You need to be able to use the chat rooms and the meeting rooms and all the different room controls and the other features that are available in the learning management system in order for you to have a positive interaction with the learning management system and with the resources for online learning. This includes understanding and knowing how and when to use the microphones, or when and how to use your camera, making sure that you've got suitable lighting. And I'm sure we've all been in meetings or webinars where people are in dark rooms, you can hardly see them, the backgrounds are not suitable, they're not dressed suitably, the microphone is not working properly, the dog's barking, and all these other things, they all affect the online learning environment. So knowing when to mute your microphone or turn your microphone on and off, or in fact mute your camera or turn your camera on and off is really, really important. Most laptops or tablets have built-in microphones and cameras, and here's an example of what not to do.
profession, is one of the only professions that say that we can never get involved with a former client ever,
I've drawn your
regardless of how
attention to
long it's been, versus like some other
red circle.
professions say a few years or whatever. I think it really depends on just like the ethical standards of the profession. And in reality, I've heard that social work kind of has very high standards and like good standards in terms of things, and that oftentimes people of other professions don't have. Yeah.
Hold on.
What happened?
Well, there you can see, everybody, and there's an example of a real life situation. Obviously, the lady wasn't aware that her camera was still on, and she had taken her laptop with her to the toilet, and shared those wonderful pictures of herself in amongst an online learning environment. So it is important to understand some very, very basic controls, and that the online environment affects all of the learners around you if you don't manage your online learning and the resources that you've got. So taking charge of your learning and be smart is a really, really important component of this. Online courses without the face-to-face classes requires you to have a clear understanding of what the course syllabus is, to understand the course outline clearly, and be very specific about exactly what it is that the course requires you to learn and what you need to learn. This should be specified up front, and if it's not, then you need to speak to your instructors and the course designers to ensure that you know exactly what it is that you need to learn. You'll also need to know what the learning resources are and what is available to you and how to access them. So how to access IT support, for example, how to access the library as an example, how to access online student support, and all the other things that are peripheral to giving you a positive learning experience. You also need to understand the timelines, what needs to be done by where. Are any of the sessions synchronous rather than asynchronous? In other words, do you need to attend sessions where the online session is going to be conducted and led by an instructor online? And do you need to diarize those dates so that you're at those sessions? You need to know what the assessments are, and you need to know when those assessments are due. And these need to be measurable in your planning. So you need to be very clear about when those assessments are due and what you need to do in order to complete them. You need to know how you can communicate with your fellow students and your online instructors and the preferred methods of communication in the course. So remember, you don't have a lecturer watching over you and guiding you through as you may have in a face-to-face classroom. It generally is up to you, and this is where we go back to that self-discipline. Planning your study time and fitting the online course into and around your activities is really, really important, rather than the other way around. So for example, if you play sport during the week, keep this time free and schedule your studies around your sporting activities. Plan your weekly study times in your calendar and communicate these times with your friends and your family so that they don't disturb you. It's the same as going to the college or the university. When you attend class, you're in the class, and generally your phone should be turned off. You shouldn't have any distractions, so that your learning experience is as positive to you and the people around you as can be. So make sure you visit the course and the fellow students online for at least 3 times a week. This is what is recommended in the online space, but you might find that other courses or courses that you're involved in might require you to visit the online course more regularly. Each course has its own requirements. An important tip and trick is do not binge watch all the videos in one night or all at the same time. So you need to schedule your study time so that you can watch the videos or the intended resources over a period of time, and you can grow your learning over the time that the course is designed for you to do that. And so it becomes a whole lot more achievable and realistic. And also don't forget to take timely breaks and move. Sitting for long periods of time combined with isolation can generally lead to anxiety and poor health. Incorporate breaks that allow you to energize yourselves. Make sure you drink water, stretch your legs, and take some time to breathe and see natural light. This is all really important to being successful in this space. And finally, making the most of the online environment. Although online courses can be more challenging, and they can also be more rewarding as they offer a whole range of personalized learning opportunities, this is not always available in the face-to-face environment. One major benefit is that online courses are immediate. here is an opportunity for you to share a little bit about yourself with the friends participating in the session. So let's look at something that's immediate. What I'd like you to do is use this QR code, scan it now if you like. And when you go into the QR code, it's a Padlet QR code. You'll get a little plus button on your phone. Click on the plus button, put your name in there, put your email address in there. And if you all do that in the session today, already we will be creating an online learning environment where you can share information with students, not only that you study with in your institution, but share your information with students studying in other institutions, and share it with students in other countries and other institutions in other countries. So here's an opportunity for you to in today's session, share your information with each other and create an online learning environment. While you're doing this, I'll finish up my presentation with the final 3 points. They are deep learning, personalizing your learning, and diversity. So the online environment offers you and your lecturers an opportunity for rich and complex student-driven discussions. And although this should be the case in both face-to-face and online courses, because online courses are generally asynchronous, as we've spoken about, and they're remote, the discussions generally and often occur over longer periods of time. And that could be, rather than minutes or hours within a lecture session, this could be sometimes days and weeks. And that those discussions are not limited to short spaces of time, normally restricted to classroom activities. These ongoing discussions and debates offer students much more opportunity for deeper thought. That is, the opportunity to think and rethink before you respond. Face-to-face, you often only get one chance at saying what you want to say. Online, you can go away and conduct further online research. You can read those notes again, you can watch those videos again, and you can have greater discussions with colleagues, et cetera, before you actually involve yourself in the discussion, or you can involve yourself in the discussion in order to evolve your argument. Opportunities for further research are broadened because really there's no requirement for you to travel, waste time getting on a bus, on a train, and traveling for that half hour, 1 hour. In some cases, people travel for many longer hours in each day, traveling just to and from their institution or to and from their places of work. So this gives you, in those times, in an online course, greater opportunity to think about the presentations, having time to take much more considered responses, and even improve your assessments as you take the opportunity to read them and reread them again in this deeper learning environment that online courses offer. Online courses also offer a more personal experience for students without synchronized meeting times and places for class attendance, as it is in the face-to-face environment. Students in an online course usually feel that the courses are much more personalized and individualized. That is, if you want to study in the morning when it suits you, you generally plan and schedule for you to study in the morning. If you prefer to study in the evenings, you change the courses without affecting anybody else around you to studying in the evening. So that although you're online courses also stress the importance of maintaining social contact, maintaining a level of collaboration with your colleagues and with your instructors. And that's really important in this whole process of developing and knowledge construction, adding to the personalization experiences of every student. So you can go away, find other resources, other examples that are not just simply provided to you by the instructor, but finding those resources and then sharing them with other students adds to the whole learning environment and allows you to give the learning environment your personal touch. Students in an online environment will begin to discover and share resources and experiences well beyond those found in the course learning environment or in the learning management system itself. And the online time saving can be invested into a whole range of opportunities to video yourself at work, to video different work practices, discuss ideas that you might have with friends and work colleagues, and explore a whole range of new technologies. And so it becomes much more than just simply what the course is about and what's available in the learn management system. It allows you to customize that and add to that substantially for the betterment of the whole learning environment, you and your fellow students. Then you can share those videos and examples with everybody that is studying with you. And this should add to the overall learning experience. And finally, diversity. An example today in our webinars, and one of the exciting things about the 30-minute talks is that we've got students from a whole range of countries, a whole range of institutions We're all studying in a like space of hospitality, tourism, and travel. But the interesting thing is we as educators are astounded by how little interaction there is between students across institutions, and even more so across countries and across borders. And I guess what the online course space does is allow us to remove those borders and really allow for students to interact in a far more greater sphere than just simply the students they study within their own institutions. So this allows you to immerse yourself in opportunities to experience different languages, different cultures, and experience knowledge from a whole range of online communities, sharing knowledge across courses and institutions and countries. Online courses provide students logging in from around the world to tap into endless possibilities. They bring together diverse people, cultures, communities, and cities, and can expand significantly on the different learning opportunities. So I said before, use the Padlet link. Again, there it is in the last slide if you haven't already. Communicate with fellow students. Let us know whereabout you are in the world. Feel free to share with us a picture of your town or a local tourism interest that might be in the local area. And let's start creating your own learning groups that can add to your learning experiences. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening today. And let me welcome Dr. Andy and Professor Hobson back to join me for our Q&A time for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Alan. Very good information. And I'm sure all the students are out there realizing that they have to take responsibility for their learning. Actually, one of the questions I had for you before I even get started here is, the workspaces, that's always one of my favorites, because where you work is where you get everything accomplished and get done. You have a nice desk in your office, and, some people go to a hotel, but I've found that some people like to go to a coffee shop where it's even kind of noisy, but even the noise is really a distraction from the distraction. So going to a park, a library, each person has to find where they work best, depending on what kind of project they're working on. So that's sort of an advice for students out there to find where they work best. I have a desk set up in exactly the way that makes me happy. So I get a lot of work done. I'm very comfortable. I have all my drinks, my candy, my pens, everything ready. So when it's time to work, you sit down and work and try to avoid all those distractions. So that was very good advice.
Fantastic. What about yourself, Perry? I know you've spent time in the UK, the US, Australia, Hong Kong. Tell us a little bit about your learning experiences.
Well, I found a lot of my own personal learning experiences. Obviously, I think the interesting thing here is transitioning is from learning to the world of work. So in many cases in my life, I've been going to an office which is being dedicated like that. And, the last few months I've been working at home again. And I was very fortunate because in my previous job before I came to Malaysia, when I was working with the ICE accreditation body, we decided to get rid of our office. So I suddenly found myself working at home. And again, many of the points you brought up was it's very easy to get distracted. And I had young kids at the time, etc. And it was very hard to identify a space, and that when Dad was at home, he was working, he wasn't just there to play with or to do something else. So those do become quite clear challenges. And I know for many students who are suddenly finding themselves having to study at home with families living in close proximity to each other, it can be very hard to keep that mental focus in terms of what's going on. So not easy. I must say that I find it, when I can work at home, much more efficient and effective. It saves a heck of a lot of transport time and one thing and the other. And I think if learning materials are well designed, they actually enhance people's learning as well. So that's sort of my feelings about it.
Absolutely. I think the point that you made, Dr. Andy, is also really important in certain parts of the world where, you may not have access to great internet connectivity from your home. And so, using an internet cafe that has a good signal, good connection, and a reliable connection, providing that it's an environment that allows you to work successfully, is a good idea, and one way to overcome some of the challenges with connectivity.
Yeah, Alan, one example is when I was working on a project in Singapore and I had to move there for a couple of weeks. I couldn't get an account to get the Wi-Fi for my where I was living. I spent most of my time at a 7-Eleven drinking coffee and using their Wi-Fi to do all of my work, and it worked out great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's also, you know, important to note from an instructor's point of view that Professor Perry Hobson just mentioned this a moment ago. For the instructors that are joining us today, think very carefully about your course design, because it doesn't always require high bandwidth intensivity in order to make the course successful. You can use a whole range of resources to get the message across, and sometimes very simple teaching resources is equally as powerful as a very high bandwidth video resource can be. So think about the resources carefully before you put your course online.
Yeah, and I think it was quite interesting. I was listening to some academic colleagues talk the other day, and they'd recently surveyed some students in Vietnam. And what was quite interesting was that the feedback from the students about what they liked about online learning and what they didn't. And some of the things they clearly liked, the top three were convenience and comfort. Over 40% of students said that. The fact they didn't have to spend so much time getting to and from the university. So between 30 and 40% of students said that, and saves time and money. And so those were the top three reasons what they liked about learning online. What they didn't like, and this I think has been quite challenging in particular countries with poor technology connectivity. So number one out of those was the poor internet connection. And the other issue was hard to comprehend the lecture, which I suspect also connected sometimes to the poor internet connectivity. So in certain countries, you know, around the region, these have been very particular problems. And I think, you know, in the Philippines has been an issue. These students were in Vietnam, in Da Nang, for example. And so clearly issues there as well. And about 6% said they missed the interaction with the lecturers. So those were the kind of things that came out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some good feedback there, Perry, because I think it links into some of the comments that I've made today, but absolutely extends to direct feedback from students that in a recent survey. When was that conducted?
That was just conducted this month. It was conducted earlier this month.
Very
so
recently,
like a lot of So like a lot of universities, I think lecturing staff had to go online in a hurry. Students had to go online in a hurry. It's been challenging from both ends to change to that. Whilst we've had online universities and online learning for a long time, often in many countries, students had to specifically go to a specialized online university to do that, which meant that many regular faculty, academics around Asia, around the world, were just not up to speed with a lot of those. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of academics had been making that leap. And I found myself thrown into this. Normally, I give a series of guest lectures at what's called the Management Center Innsbruck in Austria. I've been doing that since, well, probably the last 14 years. And this was the first year, obviously, I couldn't go. And so suddenly I had to find myself working with over 50 students. Most of the students who are in Innsbruck are not actually Austrians. Most of the students are on an exchange semester. So they're also from all over the world. And this year, some of them had to go back home. So I ended up with a group of students across 15 time zones. They went from Seoul, round to Austria, round to British Columbia. And again, so this was quite challenging because my materials were very much designed to be delivered with students in a classroom. And now I had to completely change that. And so it was a learning, I think, experience for both students and certainly for myself too.
Absolutely. I see a question there, Andy. Is the green screen work applicable for other platforms other than Zoom? For example, Google Teams or Teams Meet or
Actually, that's a good question. I'm not sure on the other platforms. The green screen, the inside of Zoom, it's built for virtual backgrounds. So it is a selection process. I don't believe it's in Meet. I have tried Meet, but it's possible. I think eventually all the online video conferencing softwares will eventually start editing it because you just can't You know, some people don't have the facilities. Some people don't have a nice office or have a nice background for them. So it gives people a way to have a clean background, just like we use in our presentations today. And I find one question about even as an example, when you're teaching an online class, I think students prefer some kind of project that they can work on rather than sitting and watching a video and then taking some kind of quiz. So even today, we're doing our PowerPoint background challenge. That's sort of an example of how to give students a challenge. And now students are going to have to go online to research backgrounds on Zoom, and they can go learn about green screens, and they can do all these things on their own as they do that self-directed learning.
Yeah.
Do it well, then next week we'll pick their slide and show it to everybody and let them know they won the prize for one of the Zoom challenges that we put on online. So it's a good way for teachers to use in the classroom too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I work across several platforms. Today I was using a new one, and their green screen function, when I initially clicked on it, it didn't seem to work. And I was going, what's going on here? And they actually had a control to gradiate the amount of green you had behind. And that really gave a much sharper background. That was quite impressive. I use Teams quite a bit. There, they don't have the function for it. For what I have found is when you do project behind you, it appears to be a lot, because it appears behind you, it did appear to be much more, a much sharper function, a much sharper image, sorry, than if I can put it that way, using that function.
Yeah,
so,
for people that use, like, if you click on the virtual background in Zoom without a green screen, it'll put that picture behind you. But then you see, when you see speakers, their head disappears. They go in and out. That's because there's no green screen. But if you put the green screen behind you, it increases the quality. The next level of increase in quality is to light the green screen properly, and then also to light yourself properly, because all that contrast is what allows the image to work very well behind you. So if you look at Professor Hobson right there, you can see, you know, there's a very slight fuzz along his shoulder, and that's the difference between the two, because there is no real picture behind him. It's just that green sheet. So that's sort of the fun part of the green screen. You can do it anywhere in the world.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
What I might do, we're moving on with time, everybody, and I think the discussion has been really useful, and it was very interesting to see from our poll today that half of you said that you would like to know how to use a green screen, and that you know, a good third of you said you'd never used it, and in fact didn't even know what it was. So we hope that alone has shared some good information with you. I did open up that Padlet session, and you can see there's a number of you that have started using the Padlet. There's a question that came through asking about, can I share the URL or the link to the Padlet? I think we'll put that into the survey, Dr. Andy, just to share that with students in the future if you haven't already clicked on the QR code. But I think it's also important to note that we are going to be using the QR code. We are using the QR code as a regular communication feature with you now and in the future. So if you don't have a QR scanner on your phone, they're free. Go onto one of the app stores and download a QR scanner, and that'll help just for you to communicate with some of the resources that we use in the show much more quickly. On that note, everybody, let's just go back to the session, and we are starting to run out of time. It's really important to once again thank our academic partners we mentioned before. Perry, if you'd like to just run through those for us.
Yes, in particular, I'd like to really thank again our academic partners from University of Santo Tomas, Lyceum University of the Philippines, NCUT in Taiwan, and also our friends at the Macau Hospitality and Educators Association as well. So a big thank you to them for their academic partnership and working with us and supporting you and your learning, and also us in being able to do this.
Fantastic. And the slide also provides, as we just spoke a moment ago, there's the QR code for today's program survey. And for those students that are wanting to get one of the 30-minute talks certificates, please make sure that you scan the code now, and complete the survey, because completing the survey is part of the requirements in order to qualify for a certificate.
And I've also included the email address to send your PowerPoint slide here. So please copy that so you can put that, people can copy that in preparation for sending in their one PowerPoint slide, just one.
Fantastic, thank you. And we've got another fantastic show lined up next week, Professor Hobson, and I know you're hosting the show. Tell us what you've got lined up for us.
Well, thanks, Alan. And I'm on my beach. I'm feeling a little bit overdressed for my beach at the moment. I think I probably ought to go back to the office here for a moment. There we go. So look, I'd like to, next week, we're going to be having someone I've worked with over many years, better known as the Master of Disaster, Dr. Bert van Wolbeek. And Bert is a hotel, a lecturer and a marketer of tourism, and he's been involved in the industry for over 40 years. He's exceptionally well known, particularly for his work talking about crisis management. He's advised government tourism bodies, such as in Macau, for example, on their tourism crisis management plans. And we're looking forward to having Bert next week to talk about, will the next normal be the old normal? And the focus of his presentation very much is how we prepare and be prepared for crises and different types of crises. As Alan, Australia knows, everyone before Christmas last year thought Australian bushfires were going to bring the end of the world, and things were bad enough for the tourism industry. Little did they know that a few months later they were going to get a pandemic. And so Bert's focus is going to be, how do we prepare for these? Because we tend to think that crises or pandemics are 1 in 100 years. There's nothing we can do to get ready for them. But in fact, different things are always happening in the industry. We work in a very dynamic industry. So how can we be better prepared? And next week, that's what we're going to be focusing on.
Fantastic. We look forward to the show, Perry, and I know Bert as well, and I know he normally puts together a great show as well. So look forward to that edition next week. And some closing comments, Dr. Andy.
You know, again, I think today's show was actually very good for students because it was directed for how they can learn. This is our first contest that we're doing, and this is a virtual background challenge to see who can create the best background using you don't have to use a green screen, you can use whatever you want, but also in the future we will be doing other challenges on different types of activities that students can learn from, and all of these skills we hope will help them become better hospitality managers in the future. So thanks everyone, thanks to Alan for his presentation today.
Thank you, and some closing comments from yourself, Perry?
Look, I think this week was great to, again, get to think about focus on learning and education. I think there was some great tips and information there, Alan, to pass on to everybody. I look forward to joining you all next week for our focus on what the next normal will be the new normal. So look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you very much, Perry. And carrying on from that note, the old normal being the new normal, online courses are becoming the space. I'm hoping that some of the tips and tricks that I shared with you all today will benefit you in the future. Thank you to everybody, our academic partners, our students, our participants, people that have joined us from week to week, and even those people that have joined us for the first time today. Thank you for joining us on 30-Minute Talks, and we look forward to seeing you all again next week. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.